the caravan crossed into the hellish wastes at dawn on the sixth day. The transition was immediate and unsettling. One moment, we were walking through familiar terrain, gray skies, withered trees, the lingering scent of corruption. The next moment, the world changed. The fog rolled in like a living thing, thick and suffocating, swallowing the light and muffling all sound. The temperature dropped, the air grew heavy, tasting of ash and decay, and the silence, the terrible, absolute silence, pressed down on us like a physical weight. We had crossed the border into the cursed lands in the practice formation. James followed me as I looked into my map that no one could see, holding one purification lamp in front with 150 men armed with shields and spears. Valerie was in the middle with a purification lamp, plus 50 men armed with shields and swords, while Ferris and Berg were with another purification lamp at the rear, plus 100 men armed with shields and swords. The remaining men were armed with sharpened sticks and hugged the edge of the carts, while some handled the animals. We walked slowly and quietly, trying hard not to make noise. Even the animals knew better than to make unnecessary noise. They also walked quietly. The purification lamps were doing their work, pushing the fog away by 300 meters in all directions, creating visibility and also making the air breathable. I stood at the front of the camp, watching the sun struggle against the gray fog and also watching my map. The caravan had grown in the days since the attack. The survivors of the assassination attempt had bonded in a way that only shared trauma could create. They were no longer just a collection of disparate individuals. They were a unit bound together by fear and hope and the promise of something better. Among the slaves, whispers spread like wildfire. They'd seen me lead them through the assassination attempt without panicking. They'd seen me heal the wounded, organize the defenses, and make impossible decisions with cold clarity. Some said I was blessed by the gods. Others said I was a demon in human form, but all of them agreed on one thing. They'd rather follow me to the ends of the earth than face the wastes alone. James. How are the men? The soldier approached, his face worn but his eyes sharp. He'd proven himself in the battle, leading the counterattack with cold efficiency. I had promoted him on the spot, and James had accepted the responsibility with quiet determination. Morale is good. They know we're in the cursed lands now. They know we might die. But they also know that staying behind meant certain death. Following you gives them a chance. A chance. That's all I can offer them, a chance to survive. A chance to build something new. Good. We're heading for an abandoned city I've identified. It's defensible, and it's the closest to Silver City. We can use it as a base and expand from there. James nodded. How many days? A day's walk. Maybe a little longer. The fog will slow us. The city was called Lightkeep, once a thriving frontier settlement before the corruption had swallowed it whole. Now it was a ghost town, its buildings crumbling, its streets choked with twisted vegetation and the remains of those who hadn't escaped. My hand drifted to the wolf pendant around my neck. It was warm against my chest, warmer than it should have been. I'd noticed it before, a faint pulse of heat, like a heartbeat, whenever danger was near. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I was determined to find out. 3 hours into the journey to Lightkeep, the screen flashed in my face. It was an attack notification. I began to prepare. I called James and Valerie to my side. We're going to be attacked. Multiple times. We need to compress the caravan into a tight formation as we practiced. James, you'll command the shielded soldiers in a circle around the caravan. Valerie, you and the archers will provide support from the carts, and I'll coordinate everything from the center. James nodded grimly, but kept wondering how I knew things nobody else knew. How many hostiles? The first wave is small, 23. They won't be like anything you've fought before. The caravan reformed into a defensive circle. The wagons and carts pulled into a tight ring. 300 shielded soldiers formed the outer perimeter, their shields locked together in a wall of iron and wood behind them. Another 200 men stood ready with sharpened sticks and spears. And on the carts, Valerie and 20 archers took their positions, their bows strung and arrows nocked. I stood in the center, my system map flickering before my eyes. The red dots were moving closer, faster than I'd expected. Brace yourselves, I called out. They're coming. 23 wolves emerged from the gray mist, but these were no ordinary wolves. Their bodies were bloated and misshapen, their fur matted with dark, oily residue. Most horrifying of all, they had 4 eyes, each one glowing with a sickly yellow light, arranged in 2 pairs on their deformed faces. Their limbs were too long, their jaws too wide, and small green boils dotted their bodies like foul jewels. The largest of them was the size of a reindeer, its muscles bulging beneath corrupted flesh. It let out a howl that was more scream than call, and the pack charged from multiple fronts. Hold the line, James shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Shields up, don't let them through. The wolves hit the shield wall like a wave of claws and teeth. The impact was tremendous. The front rank of soldiers staggered but held, their shields absorbing the brunt of the assault. The wolves snapped and clawed. their mutated strength far beyond that of normal animals. "Archers, loose," I commanded. A volley of arrows arced over the shield wall, finding their marks in the corrupted flesh of the wolves. Very few fell, except those whose skulls were pierced by the arrow, their bodies twitching as the arrows pierced their vital organs. But the others kept coming, their rage undiminished. "Valerie, now!" Valerie closed her eyes, her face twisted in concentration. She'd been training for this moment, pushing her gifted abilities to their limit. She summoned 10 bears at the enemy's rear, massive, shaggy beasts with gleaming eyes and powerful claws, and sent them charging into the wolves' rear. The bears tore into the mutated pack with savage fury. The wolves, caught between the shield wall and the sudden assault from behind, were thrown into chaos. They turned to face the bears, snapping and clawing, but they were outmatched. The bears' strength was greater, their claws sharper, their fury more focused. The battle lasted only a few minutes. When it was over, all 23 wolves lay dead. The bears, their task complete, vanished back into the ether from which they'd been summoned. I surveyed the carnage. No one died, only a dozen were wounded, but the wounds were superficial. I told James to apply the potion on their injuries. This would stop the corruption from spreading through their bodies. They'd survive, burn the bodies. I ordered, "Don't let the corruption spread, and give the potions to the men who fought. They need their strength." James approached, his shield dented and scarred from the assault. That was unexpected. I've fought wolves before, but never like that. They were almost intelligent. "They're corrupted," I replied. "The fog does something to them, makes them stronger, more aggressive, and it makes them feel no pain." I looked at my system map. The red dots were coming from the west. Rest while you can. The next attack won't be long. The hours between the first and second attacks were the hardest. The fog pressed in, thick and suffocating. The silence was broken only by the crunch of boots on corrupted earth and the occasional groan of the wounded. Men walked with their hands on their weapons, their eyes scanning the mist for any sign of movement. The tension was almost unbearable. I touched the wolf pendant around my neck again. It was pulsing with warmth, a steady rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I didn't know why, but I felt certain it was protecting me, guiding me, as if my mother's spirit was still watching over me. After we had walked for half a day, I noticed that the red dots were close and that light keep was now displayed on my map. I signaled for a rest and a quick meal of black bread and water, but I added 2 bottles of potions into the water. As the men drank, their strength was multiplied by 3, and they felt refreshed. James stood at the edge of the camp, watching the flames consume the corrupted bodies from the first attack. He thought of his wife and children, waiting for him in Silver City. He'd promised them he would return, and he intended to keep that promise. 12 hours into the journey, I saw the mass of red dots, too numerous to count, converging on our position from the northwest. "Prepare yourselves," I called out. "Here they come." The men were full of confidence. The fog parted, and they emerged, a horde of mutated humans, their bodies twisted and corrupted beyond recognition. Their skin was gray and cracked, their eyes glowing with the same sickly yellow light as the wolves. Their mouths hung open, revealing rows of jagged, broken teeth. They moved with a jerky, unnatural gait, their limbs bending in ways that should have been impossible, and they ran with speed towards the caravan. Also from the east came the antelopes. 200 of them, but these were nothing like the graceful creatures of the plains. Their bodies had grown massive, their horns twisted into grotesque spirals. Their eyes were wild, filled with a madness that spoke of complete corruption. "Holy!" James breathed, his face pale. "Focus," I snapped. "Shield wall, archers, same formation. Valerie, you know what to do." The shield wall reformed, the soldiers bracing themselves for the impact. The archers knocked their arrows, waiting for the command, and Valerie, her strength restored by the potion I had given her after the first battle, prepared to summon her bears once more. The horde hit the shield wall like a tidal wave. The mutated humans threw themselves at the shields, clawing and biting, their strength far beyond that of ordinary men. The antelopes charged from the flanks, their horns battering the shields like battering rams. "Hold," James roared. "Hold the line." The front rank of soldiers staggered but held, their shields absorbing the impact. The second rank stepped forward, their spears thrusting through the gaps in the shield wall, striking at the corrupted creatures beyond. "Archers, loose." A volley of arrows arced over the shield wall, striking the antelopes in their eyes and throats. Several fell, but more kept coming, their madness driving them forward. "Valerie." Now, Valerie summoned her bears, 22 of them, their massive forms appearing in the midst of the horde. They tore into the mutated humans and antelopes with savage efficiency, their claws and teeth ripping through corrupted flesh like paper. The battle was brutal and bloody. The mutated humans fought with a desperation that bordered on insanity, their corrupted bodies refusing to die even when they should have. The antelopes charged and trampled, their horns goring anyone who came too close. But my tactics held. The shield wall absorbed the attacks, the archers provided covering fire, and Valerie's bears wreaked havoc on the enemy's rear. Slowly, inexorably, the horde began to break. When it was over, the ground was littered with the bodies of the corrupted. The mutated humans lay in twisted heaps, their gray skin torn and broken. The antelopes lay where they had fallen, their massive bodies bleeding into the corrupted earth. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Casualties. James checked the ranks. 4 dead, my lord. 20 wounded. Most of the wounds are superficial, but some are deep. We need to treat them now with the potions, do it, and burn the bodies. Valerie's summoned bears made the gathering of the dead faster. In 30 minutes, they were done. We can't let the corruption spread. 19 hours into the journey, the third attack came in the dead of night when the caravan had stopped to rest. I had been awake, studying my map, when the red dots appeared. 113 coming from the south, fast, almost like they were tracking their trail. Wake everyone. I told James, we're under attack. The caravan scrambled to form their defensive circle, the soldiers groggy but disciplined. The shields were raised, the archers took their positions, and Valerie prepared herself for another summoning. And then we saw them. The rats emerged from the fog like a tide of darkness. They were massive, each one the size of a German shepherd, their bodies sleek and powerful, their eyes gleaming with the same sickly yellow light. Small green boils dotted their fur, and their teeth were long and sharp, dripping with a foul-smelling saliva. They moved with terrifying speed, their claws scrabbling against the corrupted earth. They didn't hesitate, didn't pause to size up their prey. They simply attacked. Shield wall. James shouted, hold. The rats hit the shield wall like a wave of teeth and claws. They were smaller than the wolves, faster than the humans, and their sheer numbers were overwhelming. They crawled over each other, climbing the shields, trying to find a way through. Archers, loose. The arrows flew, striking the rats and killing many. But more kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Valerie. Now, Valerie summoned her bears once more, 22 of them, their massive forms appearing in the midst of the rat horde. The bears tore into the rats with savage efficiency, their claws and teeth ripping through the corrupted bodies. But the rats were different from the wolves and humans. They were faster, more agile, and their sheer numbers made them difficult to kill. They swarmed over the bears, biting and clawing, trying to bring them down. James, press forward, drive them back. James led the shield wall forward, the soldiers pushing against the tide of rats. The archers kept loosing arrows, and Valerie kept summoning bears, but the rats kept coming. It was a desperate fight, but my tactics held. The shield wall absorbed the attacks, the archers provided covering fire, and Valerie's bears wreaked havoc in the enemy's rear. Slowly, inch by inch, they began to push the rats back. When it was over, the ground was littered with the bodies of the rats. They lay in heaps, their corrupted bodies steaming in the cold air. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Casualties. James checked the ranks. None dead. Another 15 wounded. We need to treat them soon. Do it, and burn the bodies. The caravan had survived 3 attacks. Each one had been brutal. Each one had cost lives. But we had survived. I stood at the edge of the camp, watching the bodies burn. The flames consumed the corrupted flesh, purifying the land. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Valerie approached, her face pale with exhaustion. I can't summon any more bears, she said. I'm too tired. Take this. I handed her a potion in a small vial. And rest, I replied. You've earned it. You fought well today. She nodded, too tired to speak. She turned and walked back to one of the carts and lay on it, leaving me alone with Elena. We survived, but there will be more attacks. The map shows more red dots, bigger ones. Stronger ones. We need to reach Lightkeep soon, or we'll be overwhelmed. I looked at my system map, studying the layout of the lands ahead. Lightkeep was still 3 hours away. But the roads were dangerous, and the corruption was spreading. We need to move faster. We need to reach the city in 2 hours. This will be a sprint. I told everyone. Everyone drink the water. I had mixed more potions into it. We move out in 10 minutes. After 3 hours, we finally got to Lightkeep, which I had renamed Light City. I stood at the city's edge, my system ledger mapping every street, every building, every threat. The ledger's eyes showed scattered groups of corrupted monsters, most of them lurking in the shadows of the abandoned structures west of my position. The armory in the eastern quarter is the best option. One way in, one way out, narrow approach. Perfect for defense against hordes. James, take 200 men, clear the eastern quarter. Don't go beyond 120 meters. Valerie, take 100 men, I need the armory cleared and secured within the hour. Borg and Ingid, take 500 men and start breaking down all the buildings north along the walls. We're going to need stone. Ferris, Take a 100 men and secure our goods and animals. Once Valerie is done clearing the armory, take all the perishable goods inside. Archers and the rest of you, pick up your spears and come with me. Elena, assist Ferris and document everything we have left. The work began with grim efficiency. James led a group of armed soldiers through the streets, methodically clearing the buildings. Valerie stood at the top of the armory after clearing it, her 100 men relocated to my position, her bow ready, watching for any sign of movement. The sound of stone against stone filled the air, a constant, grinding rhythm that echoed through the ruined city. Sweat dripped from the laborers' brows as they hauled broken blocks into place. Dust coated their clothes, their faces, their lungs. But they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Not with the gray fog pressing in from all sides. Borg and Ingrid directed the construction. Bring me the stone. Stack it here, against the wall. Yes, like that. And start building a wall. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to hold. It took 10 minutes to clear the armory. The building was surprisingly intact, its heavy stone walls still standing, its iron doors still intact. Inside, Valerie found a treasure trove: iron armor, long swords, broad shields, bows and arrows, and long, wicked iron-tipped spikes. Arm every man who can carry a weapon. The few women who can shoot a bow get one. The rest, I need them building. The transformation began. Slaves became soldiers, laborers became builders, and the armory became a fortress. But not everyone was impressed. It's a death trap, my lord. One attack and we're trapped in here. There's nowhere to run. I turned to face Ferris, the demoted quartermaster who'd been assigned to logistics. The man's face was pinched with worry, his eyes darting to the walls. Running is not an option. We stand or we die. And I've chosen to stand. Against what? There could be thousands of them out there. We don't know what's coming. I smiled. That's where you're wrong. I know exactly what's coming. The attack came 3 days later. I had been awake for 20 hours, directing the construction of the city's defenses. I'd spent 200 points earned by completing tasks and achieving milestones. Every enemy killed, every structure built earned points that could be spent in the system store. It was another layer of strategy, another way to turn effort into advantage. I used the points to unlock the construction store, then spent 200 gold coins from the system store to purchase 2,000 bags of cement. Borg and Ingrid were surprised to see strange bags in the store. When they asked, I explained its use and demonstrated to my core team how it worked. This is a bonding agent that is used as mortar, but it's 20 times stronger than your current mortar. I said, the walls will be 20 times stronger. It will turn this ordinary stone into a fortified wall. They didn't believe me until the experiment dried. I told them to try and force it apart, and no one could. Their eyes were in awe of the mysterious substance, and their lorder. 400 citizens had labored day and night, breaking down homes, hauling stone, mixing mortar. And now, the wall was beginning to take shape, 2.5 meters thick and 5 meters high, which was roughly as tall as 4 grown men stacked head to toe. It's not much, but it's something. A flash of movement in my system ledger caught my attention, a red wave of markers sweeping across the map like a tide of fire. Undead horde, 2,000 plus, heading this way. And in less than an hour, the dead will be charging straight at them. My heart seized, but my face remained calm. This time I allowed the scouts to spot the horde and raise the alarm. James, Valerie, the attack is coming, prepare the men. It was James who organized the defenses, moving from position to position with quiet efficiency. It was Valerie who took command of the archers, positioning them at key vantage points. And it was I who gave the final command. This is our major test. If we survive this, we can survive anything. Hold the line. Don't let them break through. The attack came at twilight, just as the last traces of daylight were fading into the gray fog. They came silently at first, a dark tide of twisted flesh and glowing eyes. Then the screaming began, and the world dissolved into chaos. Fire! Loose arrows rained down on the horde, but the undead didn't stop. They kept coming, wave after wave, driven by a hunger that couldn't be reasoned with. Hold the line. Shields up, the first wave hit the walls with a sound like thunder, their claws scrabbling against the stone. The makeshift army held, pushing back, fighting with desperation born from a refusal to die. I reached into my system store, purchasing a special potion I'd discovered in the system's catalog. It was expensive, 20 gold per dose, but in that moment it was worth any price. James, Valerie, drink this now. They didn't question me. They drank, and then the effect was immediate. James's eyes blazed with new fire. Valerie threw her head back and screamed, and from her hands erupted a torrent of blue light that seared the undead to ash. The potion unlocked her gift. This time it wasn't a bear. The beast was massive, a hulking, fire-breathing creature that seemed to be made of living flame. Its scales shimmered like black obsidian, its eyes burned with inner fire, and its maw was filled with teeth like daggers. When it roared, the sound was like thunder, shaking the ground and scattering the horde. And when it breathed, a torrent of blue flame erupted from its throat, turning the undead to ash in an instant. It appeared in the middle of the horde, roaring with an intensity that shook the very ground. Valerie, control it, drive it into the horde. She obeyed, her eyes burning with an intensity I had never seen before. The beast surged forward, its fiery breath scorching the undead into nothingness. The rest of the army followed, pouring through the gap in the horde. 1 hour of fighting, killing, burning. By the time the last undead fell, the ground was slick with ash and green slime. I stood amid the carnage, my chest heaving, my hands trembling. James was still fighting, his sword raised high, screaming defiance at the gray sky. We survived. Against all odds, we survived. Sound the all clear. Check the wounded. I want a full count. Valerie, use your summoned eagles to fly above and scan the area for remnants and also as our scout for the time being. The casualties were heavy, but not as heavy as they could have been. My lord, 30 dead. Twice as many wounded. But the horde was destroyed, and the survivors are still standing. Valerie stumbled toward me, her face streaked with ash and blood. My lord, what did you give me? What was that potion? My expression softened. It's an expensive magical potion that cost me 2,000 gold, bought from the Empire's magical towers. It's to help you unlock your ability. The truth was that it had only cost me 20 gold coins from the system store. But Valerie didn't need to know that. She needed to know her master valued her enough to spend a fortune on her. Valerie's watery eyes filled with gratitude. No one had ever treated her the way her master treated her. Suddenly, a blue spark moved from her heart and touched my heart, and the bond was created. I felt it immediately, a surge of warmth, a sense of connection, as if a thread had been woven between our souls. I could feel her exhaustion, her gratitude, her fierce loyalty, and she could feel my determination, my cold calculation, my hidden fear. We were bound now, for better or worse. This was so eventful that Valerie began to glow. She glowed and glowed until it was just bright light that no one could look at. Valerie was undergoing some transformation, and everyone immediately realized that she was now a full gifted. The light died down, and in the middle of it was Valerie, standing with her eyes closed. When she opened her eyes, she could see as far as 2 kilometers in every direction she faced, even into the fog. She could see the individual stones in the wall, the subtle movements of the soldiers, the faint glow of the purification lamps. And she could feel something else, a connection to the land itself, as if the corrupted earth was calling to her. She could feel a surge of raw power in her. She came and bowed down before me, who patted her hair and told her to get up. She stared at me, her eyes searching for something. Finally, she nodded. I'll never doubt you again. Never. The rest of the month flew by as the walls continued to grow in size. The abandoned city that had greeted us with its crumbling buildings and silent streets was barely recognizable now. Walls rose where there had been ruins. Torches burned where there had been darkness. And where there had been silence, there was the sound of construction, of hammers, of voices, of life. At the end of the month, I had managed to bring down all the houses by the old wall and use them for the construction of the entire northern east-to-west wall. Lightkeep was a heavily fortified smaller city when compared to Silver City or Maple City that was south of our location. Its former walls measured 1.2 miles, and in less than a month I had managed to build the entire northern east-to-west wall, which was 10 times stronger than the previous wall. It was remarkable. Alina moved through the camp with a clipboard in her hand, documenting supplies and tracking inventories. She'd learned to read and write in secret, taught by the old steward before he'd been sold away. Now she was putting that skill to use, helping me manage the logistics of my growing settlement. It was exhausting work, but she was proud of it. I sat alone in my tent at night, my hands shaking slightly. No one saw it. No one ever saw it. I had to be strong for my people, had to project confidence even when I felt none. But in the quiet moments, when the weight of everything pressed down on me, I felt the fear, the doubt, the exhaustion. I pushed it down, buried it deep. There was no room for weakness, not in the hellish wastes. Monthly dividend on the first day of the next month. As I rose from my bed, the system store flashed with a notification. This month's dividend package. Assets. 5,000 foot soldiers, 1,000 archers, 1,000 cavalry. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything had seemed impossible a month ago. I'd been a disgraced bastard with nothing. Now I had a city, an army, and a growing treasury. I smiled. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. A very good start.